speaking on JayZ and Drake, apparently the great hooper Trae Young.
Okay, first of all,
he backtracked that all the way though.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did he? So
because the internet got on his ass.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this though, because
Talk about it.
there's definitely people that believe this is true.
There is, unfortunately.
So Trae Young said essentially, when are we going to pass the throne, if you will? And from JayZ to Drake.
No.
So I think we pretty much just talked about why this thing, but
Yeah.
can we go a little bit further into why this won't be a thing?
it will never be a thing
But why?
because he's too one-dimensional. Like, he's way too one-dimensional. And if you look, I'm not saying like JayZ's the deepest person, like the deepest rapper out there, but he like there are things that he does for communities, for like the underprivileged people, like, and just for like music and like hip hop,
Even just the
general.
music, not even including the philanthropy or whatever.
Just that alone, like, there's diversity in like his projects, there's diversity in his approach to music. And Drake just doesn't have that, which we just spent, that time talking about. So it's like, there's no way that he could pass him because he doesn't
have the range.
He doesn't have the capacity.
Drake
He doesn't
hasn't
have the
done
range. Like, there's no way he can do it.
anything. He hasn't done anything to shift the culture, so to speak. Whereas Jay has done that not once. I'm not about to sit there and be LeBron and name a whole bunch, but he's done it a handful of times. JayZ is the type of artist that can tell you about his life, and he literally dropped an album called The Blueprint. He's throwing you gems on certain life things, and he's told people how to dress, and people follow suit. Like, literally, just even that. Drake doesn't have that cultural reach like that. He hasn't tapped into that type of energy, in my personal opinion. He can drop some cool notable rhymes here and there and moment music, and he's going to be remembered through time. I give him that. But he has not shifted the culture or made anybody go against him that's for real in this rap thing, other than Pusha T.
All right, Jay, real quick. Number one, do you agree with that?
No.
Okay.
I'm just absolutely look. As the only thing you can compare JayZ and Drake to is even the people who don't like Drake and the people who don't like JayZ are still compelled to listen to their music just so they can have an opinion on it. That's the only comparison there is. I mean, you can say, oh, you can look at Billboard stats. Billboard stats don't mean anything to me now in the streaming era. It just doesn't, because I think it's just like with they need to put asterisks by some of these records that people quote unquote are breaking in the streaming era, because I'm sorry, the fact that somebody sat and listened to it on their phone all weekend does not equate to me to getting up and going to the store physically and buying a CD.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. When you talk about what a stream is worth, I'm sorry, you can't compare that to what it is for me to stand outside of the discount den at midnight so I can get the Tribe Called Quest album.
Who's that?
Yeah, it's a group. You might have heard of them.
But what about this? Do we all? What do we mean by Drake hasn't shifted the culture? And does that matter?
I think Drake in a way has shifted culture. Maybe not. We got to think.
Not in the same sense as a JayZ.
Maybe not, but we got to think about, once again, we're in our late 30s, early 40s. If you're 18, Drake has shifted culture. If you're 22, maybe Drake has shifted culture. We don't see it because we have so much of a bigger sample size of hip hop and of culture to draw from, where when we see what Drake is doing, we're like, whatever. But if you're 18, you got to understand Drake in a way. I mean, because Trae Young is how old? He's what, 14?
Young.
He shifted Canadian. He shifted Canadian culture because they didn't have a hip hop artist to even look up to other than like a Cardinal Official and
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
𝗏𝗏, shout out to Socrates. There was always a scene up there, but it's just not to this level. But so Trae Young might be at oldest 23, 24. Drake has been famous for 11 or 12 years. Yeah. So to Trae Young, Drake is JayZ. Because just think about what was the last JayZ album was 444. that was what, the first year of this podcast. So you're talking about maybe 4 or 5 years ago at this point.
Trae Young was still a teenager.
Yeah. So, and that didn't speak to him. So like, you know, there are people.
JayZ been speaking to that young man his whole life.
I'm just saying, like, if
So was Big Daddy Kane.
Once again,
No, yeah.
it really is about perspective. Like, you know, if I talk to my young boys and they don't know JayZ like we know him. They weren't there for when JayZ told everybody to put up the throwback jerseys and put on button ups. They don't remember that.
I remember their parents dressing them in button ups.
I would never mistake what Michael Jackson has done or Prince has done for what JayZ has done. Like,
Never.
So there's no excuse to say that because he grew up in this era, that's the pinnacle to him, because the music's still there. Like, I know the impact that Michael Jackson and Prince had on the world and music, and it's not like that's not even comparable to what JayZ has done. And it's the same way if you go down. So JayZ to Drake, like, just because Drake has been famous for as long as he's been around or has been like a young adult, like, there are other people and with well documented that have really changed the culture. Like, Michael Jackson really changed the culture of music.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I would never say, oh, JayZ had as big an impact on music as Michael Jackson or Prince has. Just like you just can't say that Drake made a difference in music
the same way that
JayZ has.
Let me ask you this.
I was trying to, once again, just playing devil's advocate of like, as far as like who these, you know, I had this conversation with, you know, one of my homegirls, and I said, look, I didn't get XXX Tentacion. I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
True.
But for you talk to somebody who's a certain age, that's their Tupac. And I know for
Juice WRLD the same way.
I know people listening to me are like, that's blasphemous. Yeah, because you're the same age as me. You remember Tupac. And these kids, the impact, like I see
It's the microwave Tupac.
I see him with the t-shirts. You know, they still post about him. They still talk about him. You know, the same way we just, you know, after, you know, we're coming up on Tupac being taken from us just 25 years ago. So now you talk to somebody who's 17.
It's crazy.
XXX is so they don't.
That's kind of like us. Like, I mean, we technically didn't know like
when Marvin
Bob
Gaye.
Marley alive, or Marvin Gaye died when I was like
84.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like 4 or 5 years old when he passed away. But like, I'm putting it in context. Yeah, I know.
But it didn't affect,
and I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back and listen to it.
Like,
See,
that's sad.
That's the kind of difference in the generational thing. We'll go back and actually listen and get an understanding. Some of them will, but some of them won't. A lot of them won't.
Well,
but like, even what I was going to make a point about is with JayZ. How many people was like throwing up the rock and saying they want to be signing Rockefeller and this, that, and the other? It ain't a whole bunch of kids walking around talking about OVO and
you don't know
owl necklaces on.
It's that we don't know them.
I know some.
I
know a good amount of them.
I think it's just a different generation, because I feel like at the same time, like us as kids were different as the kids now. Kids now have so much more access to everything and access to people. And we've had time to come around and check out all these artists. You know, a lot of people, my point of the access thing is a lot of these people that we hear these voices from, the younger people now, it's because they're on social media. We can literally hear them. But back then, like, we had time to grow into pay attention to stuff, and conversations just move differently. I don't know. I think this conversation is interesting because we're kind of prefacing it a little bit around like moving the culture, but also like impact, and like we are putting a little bit of an emphasis on like what do these artists do that is really like game changing, and also like even outside of like their content too. Like I feel like all the artists that we've talked about, their content was a very specific type of way. And it's interesting to think about how Drake's content really is just for popularity. Like it's for the lowest common denominator. Like it really is.
I wouldn't even say that. I just say Drake makes records for Drake fans. He's not trying to impress
Drake is
anybody.
he's a cool senior in high school that never graduates.
He's like,
Yo,
Fonz.
for real, like that's what it kind of seems like. That's
Yeah,
that's that
Or
same energy.
he comes back every homecoming and was like, check this out.
Yeah.
It's like
It really
the
is, 'cause
high school hero.
and like
He's got rumors of dating kids too, so there's
that's
that.
sad.
You know what?
But
I mean, he does.
yeah, I forget my point. So never mind.
Sorry, but
Yeah, I don't remember what I was saying, but I don't know. Yeah, the Drake.
I feel like it just like it should move you. Like I think there's a difference when you have pop party club songs, but then you have like music that actually like makes you feel compelled to like change who you are, or at least think. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I can dig
that's
that.
just me. That's just me.
Because there's like when I think of Jay-Z, I think of certain songs that you could drop right now and everybody would sing it word for word.
Jay-Z
You know what I'm saying?
did.
But I feel like Drake has that too, though.
He does, but it's not it's not hard, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Like I can drop a hard Jay-Z song and everybody in the crowd knows it. The men, the ladies, everybody knows it.
I think it's just generation.
Drake song you'll drop, everybody will know it, but it doesn't feel the same when it's being sung back to you, so to speak.
Maybe
I don't know.
This goes back to episode number 1 of the New Old Heads when we talked about Drake being a pop star. I think he's just a pop star that raps, man.
And there's nothing wrong with
There's
that.
nothing wrong with it. He's figured that lane out in a way that nobody else has.
And because he raps specifically, it makes him a little bit different than like a Michael Jackson or a Prince or a I don't know, Guns N'
Ain't nobody.
So you trying to say
nobody
Drake is
been able
better
to
than
come out
Michael
on
Jackson and
stage
Prince?
and just stand there and have people falling out and crying and passing out and like Michael Jackson. There's never been another artist like that. Shit, drugs.
Well, I mean, even when we, like I said, I don't see it. It doesn't seem like now. I feel like Drake. We just know he doesn't have another gear.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
he's got a ceiling.
He's got a 10 speed.
I just know that like Kendrick, he might have another gear that we don't know about.
Yeah,
but maybe they don't. I mean, maybe he
know.
doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Like
Kendrick's already showed us a lot.
Kendrick
of gears,
showed us a couple weeks like. He got through 4 bars. I was like, that's his ninth flow.
you know, I'm a huge Kendrick fan.
Kendrick
so
don't be out here playing games.
Yeah. If you've enjoyed this segment of the New Old Heads podcast, make sure you join our live show every Tuesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/newoldheads. You can also catch playback of all of our shows on any podcast app and youtube.com/newoldheadsnetwork. And go to newoldheads.com/community to join our Discord.